All right, so here we have InDesign, and I'm going to create a new file, and I'm going to pretty much rocket through everything that we did last time. So I'm going to create a new document, and I'm going to make sure my units are inches, because unless we are in the UK or Hong Kong, we're going to use inches and nothing else. So you can make your magazine up to 8.5 by 11 inches. The reason being that the largest size that we can fold is 11 by 17. I am going to do something different today, and I'm going to make my magazine actually I'm going to make it a little bigger. I'll make it 6.5 by 8. So I'll do a horizontal, I'll do a horizontal portrait format, and my pages are how many pages? 8, starting with 1, and I'm going to give myself 5 columns. Now I'm giving myself an odd number of columns because it's easier to work off a grid that way. It actually makes a more interesting layout because asymmetry is more interesting to your eye. So, and I'm going to do the crucial thing here, which is check facing pages. And I'm going to give myself a 1/8 inch gutter, 0.125 inches. Now let's go down to margins here. I don't want a 1/2 inch margin on this. I'm going to go with an 1/8 inch margin, but I also don't have to have it all the same. And this helps me design as well. So I'm going to actually make my top margin 1 inch, 1 space IN. My bottom margin I'm going to make 0.5 inches. And my inside margin, so remember we're using facing pages so that when we open this up, we're seeing it as spreads, like a book. So my inside margin, I'm going to make 0.125 inches, and that's going to add up to 1/4 inch on the inside. So that's known as the gutter. So we don't want things like type crossing the gutter. We don't want crucial, like we don't want somebody's face crossing the gutter. You can have stuff crossing the gutter, just not important stuff. So that's our gutter, and our outside I'm going to make 0.5 inches as well. So one of the misconceptions, I'm also going to put in my bleed, of 0.125 inches, of course, and I'm going to hit create. All right, so there's the front cover of my magazine. And I'm going to go to pages over here, and we can see that all of them, we've got my front cover here, and then we have our 6 pages, and we have our back cover. And take a look at my margins here. So this is my spine, the spine of my magazine, and this is called the foredge of my magazine. So this is the part that we're going to trim. We're going to trim out all of this stuff. Guess what? You don't need bleed over here because we're going to take this and fold it, and we're going to staple it in the middle, and boom, we're done. So you only need to worry about bleed on the edges that are going to be trimmed. Other thing I want to quickly mention here is that I put in the margins just as a design guide. So they're going to help me design. I don't have to, some people mistake the margins as the printable area, and you all know that's not true. We're just using them as a design guide. Okay, now let's go to pages. So above all of our pages we have none, and we have a master. So a master, if I double click on that, that's anything that I want to repeat, as we mentioned before, anything that I want to repeat on my page. Well, what would be the number one thing I want to repeat? That's right, my page number. So I'm going to take a frame. So everything in InDesign goes in a frame, and I am going to put my page number, I think I'll put it in the center. So I'm going to draw a frame, or I can draw, actually I'm going to draw a text frame, not a picture frame. That would be smart. I'm going to draw a text frame, and in that I am going to put a special character. There's a lot of stuff in InDesign on the type menu. And can you see all this stuff? A lot. Now we've already been through paragraph styles, which are important. And there's a lot of other stuff, and one of the big things are insert special character, symbols, bullets, copyrights, markers, hyphens, and dashes. Well, I'm going to go to current page number, and this is also a good key command, Command-Shift-Option-N. So if you remember that one's current page number. Okay, and I get a character. The character is A. Now, this character, look at where it is positioned in the frame. It's positioned on the left edge. So is that gonna center it on my page? No. Let's center it within the frame. So I'm going to go ahead and center it, and now I'm going to use a really easy trick because it is now centered within the frame. I can center it within my margins. I can give it a nice big box, and it will be centered on my page. Now, how do I get the page number on the other side? Because I need page numbers on both sides. Well, I'm just going to copy that, paste that over here, and now I have my page number on the other side. So now when I go back, so here's another thing that people commonly do when they first start to design in InDesign. They'll say, hey, I made a page number, and then they'll start to design on the master page, on a master. Don't do it. The master page is only for stuff that repeats. So if I have a page number that I want to repeat, or let's say I have a little design device, for example, a line that I want to be at the bottom of every page, I'm going to put a 3-point line at the bottom of every page. That's the stuff I put on the master page. I don't put on things like the entire design. I don't put text on the master page. I don't put pictures on the master page unless they repeat. So right now I just have these 2 repeating elements. Now when I go to page 1, page 2 and 3, look, they're numbered. So what size is this type, people? Large print books for old people, right? So we don't change that on the page, we change that on the master page. So I'm going to go back to the master page, and this symbol A, I'm going to change it. I'm going to make it 9 point, and this is our default typeface, and I'm going to make it the typeface that I plan to use. And of course, because I'm obsessed with this typeface, I'm going to make it either Avenue, no, I'm going to make it Alt Din. Nice, big, thick, condensed typeface, 9 point. And I'm going to put that on my other master page. And I'm going to use that as my headline typeface as well. So now here I have pages 1, 2, and 3, and now that looks a lot better. Okay, now there's one place we don't want the master page to apply, and that's on our front and back cover. And that's where this none page comes into the play. So if I don't want, on my front cover, if I don't want the master page, I'm just going to take none, no master page, and I'm going to drag it to page 1, and I'm going to drag it to page 8. And watch what happens here. Goodbye. So now I just have page numbers and those repeating devices where I want them. Okay, so here's my cover. I'm going to ignore my cover for right now, and I'm going to go to my first spread. So let's talk about, so you all know how to do character and paragraph styles. So I'm going to quickly make some type, and I'm going to create a headline, body copy, and we're going to do what's called making the grid, and then we're going to break the grid. So making the grid, here's my grid, 5 columns of unequal sizes. Give me a subject. Dogs, excellent topic. Okay, so let's do dogs, and let's do Alt Din. And I think I'm going to use the condensed version for this. No, I don't have that. All right, fine. Okay, so I'm going to make it bigger, which is the key command I'm using is Command-Shift greater than. And I'm going to make my headline type 62 points. Okay, so right now it's hanging out in my margin here. And I am going to select this, and I'm going to make that into a paragraph style. So I'm going to go to Window, and I'm going to go to Type and Tables. Excuse me, I'm going to go to Styles, and I'm going to go to Paragraph Styles. So I'm going to make a new one, Create New Style. That's Paragraph Style 1. Double click, and I'm going to call that Headline. Great, I now have a headline style. Okay, so now you don't have anything written yet, and that's okay. What I am going to do is drag a huge text box that goes over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or even all over both pages. So each one of these grid units represents a column, and what we want to do is stay within those grid units. And then we're going to start to have fun by breaking the grid. So I'm going to go to type again, and I'm going to fill it with placeholder text. Okay, guess what this placeholder text is in? It's in 12-point minion. Yay! Okay, we don't want that. We want to change that. So I am going to go to my character. So up here in the properties panel, I have my character formatting options, and I have over here my paragraph formatting options. So I'm going to go to my character formatting options, and I'm going to make this, again, because I'm obsessed with it, I'm going to make it Avenir. I've been obsessed with Avenir now for a year. I'm going to make it Avenir book so I can read it, and I'm going to make it no more than 11 points. I'm going to make mine 10.5 points. And remember our rule of leading, 120%? Well, I am going to use a little bit more leading than that because I want a lighter look. So I'm going to use 14-point leading. Now, I want this text to break up into columns, right? So I don't have to have it break up into columns. So here I have W. If I hit W, I get rid of all my guides, makes it easier for me to see. Good key command to know. Maybe I want this to cover 2 columns, maybe I don't. So if I want it to cover, let's say I want this to cover 2 columns. Okay, this is where having an odd grid structure is beneficial to you. Now remember how we make another column of text from the overflow? Click, and now I'm going to drag another column. And it can be on the same page, it can be on the next page, it can be on any page you want. Okay, so let's say that's my dogs article. Now these two are connected, and I am going to start making the grid to break the grid. Okay, so I'm going to use a couple of devices in magazine design, one of which is called a sidebar or a call out or a pull quote. So a sidebar looks like this. It's going to go from bleed line to bleed line at the outer edge or the foredge of my magazine. And just because I don't have any text for it yet or any content for it yet, I'm going to give it a color. So I'm going to give it a percentage of black. It would help if I selected it. That would be good. Okay, so I'm going to give it a percentage of black, just as a design device. So that's called a sidebar. And let's do a call out or a pull quote. I'm starting to run out of time for this one, so I'm going to make my pull quote cover. I actually think I'm going to make it cover 3 columns. So I'm going to go to type, fill with placeholder text, and I'm going to make that Alt-A-Din, and I'm going to the way InDesign works is it's just going to fill your pull quote space with the amount of text that it has there, and I just happen to like the fact that it ends with "uga," so I'm going to go with that. And I'm actually going to make it a little bit bigger. So that's my pull quote style. So now I've developed, love that, "uga." So now I'm going to create a new paragraph style, and I'm going to call that, so notice it gives me paragraph style 1. I get to change this, pull quote. And I have my text style. Don't use basic paragraph plus, make a new style, paragraph style 1. I'm going to call that body. All right, so now I'm set up to create my structure. All right, so I'm going to pause.